somewhere. Let me take another look.
I didn't blame anyone for the loss of my legs. Some Chinaman took them from me in Korea, but I went out and achieved anyways. I cannot solve your problem, sir. Only you can. Welcome to another wonderful edition of the Good Talk podcast. That is our lovely opening from the greatest movie of all time, The Big Lebowski. Get fucking wrecked if you don't think so. It's scientific fact. Thank you. Rub has proven it for me in a lab.
I don't need your science for that.
No. My wonderful co-host, my partner, and the only guy that will be here with me as much as I can possibly have him,
Or
the one and
stand
only.
me.
Or stand me, or put up with my bullshit. Mr. Chris Rubb.
Hi, everybody.
I am, of course, Jonah Lanto, and tonight we have another wonderful guest. In a week filled with amazing guests, I have with us a young girl who has altered her perceptions in order to enhance positivity and allow that positivity to spread like an infectious epidemic around us. And she is here to help us learn how we can recycle and reuse and get rid of negative energy and allow that positive energy to flow through our lives. Welcome to the show, Mrs. Sarah Fast.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Good to have you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We really do. We love your message of positivity. It is the world does need more of it, and I think there are probably a number of different ways in which people can work together to help everybody just see things in a little bit better of a light. I mean, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like we all need a little bit of extra love. We all need a little bit of extra light, a little bit of extra positivity. But would it be fair to say, without the occasional little injection of negativity, that maybe we wouldn't appreciate those positive times?
I feel like, the negative is always going to be there, and we can choose what we focus our attention on and hoping that we focus on the good more than the bad.
Yeah, you have to identify the bad. But you don't have to focus on it. You don't have to swim in that pool, right?
That's exactly right.
You have a choice. You have, in that regard.
A lot of that is being present and realizing your own mindset, realizing that you are maybe holding yourself back and that you have the key all along. You've had it all along. You have the key to move forward. Find a reason to be positive about a situation and look forward to tomorrow.
So our favorite way to open the show is, of course, with an amazing Good Talk 5, and I think we've got a powerful lineup of Good Talk 5 questions here. And remember, folks, we always appreciate your feedback. You can find us on Twitter. We're at the Good Talk 5. On iTunes, you can subscribe and review us. It's the Good Talk, all one word. So we love to hear from you, and we really do our best to incorporate some of your thoughts and ideas into our show. So without further ado, Sarah is a new mother, and I have a really fucking devious question, of course, as any of you listeners know. We take the Good Talk 5 questions, and we want to rattle your brain with them, and then we want to hold you upside down, drain your brain, and find what comes out. So, with that being said, I hope, Sarah, you are ready for this. Do you think you're ready for these ones?
Oh, I'm so ready. So
Okay.
ready.
If you discovered after 7 years that the hospital had mixed up your baby with someone else's, would you want to trade back and take your biological baby or just keep the one you have? Now, in this, like the other couple, they're cool to do whatever you want to do. They're like, hey, you know what? This baby's been ours for 7 years.
But whatevs.
We love it. We've raised it. But if you want to trade, we will. But we're cool with keeping this one. What would you do?
Well, I would most definitely want to search for my biological child.
You wouldn't even have to search. The hospital has identified it. They
figured it
know.
out.
You can fucking go and trade your kid in the next day. You don't get to have them both, though. If you trade your kid in, your 7-year-old that you've raised for 7 years, if you trade him, that's it, man.
Yeah,
The line's cut off.
I don't think I would trade the kid. I would just want to maybe keep in
There's
touch.
no third answers here. That's you. If you try to third answer this, the third answer police will come raining fucking down on this house. There's a third answer drone strike waiting for people like you.
That family and whatever baby you don't choose are moving back to the moon.
Yeah, they're fucking gone.
Okay, I would have to keep the baby.
You'd have to keep it.
I would.
I don't see
That's
how
a
like
valid answer, honestly. If
I
you're
don't
gonna spend
see
that
how,
much time
like-
with a child,
Yeah.
that's your child.
does the biology matter that much if
No.
you've raised it for that long?
Any
and,
adoptive parent would tell you no.
and in this, like, nobody will ever find out, right? It's not gonna, the kids will never know. Nobody will ever know, unless, like, nobody will ever know.
Oh, that adds way too much complexity to the question.
Well, I'm just saying, nobody will ever know.
Right.
You don't gotta deal with those other layers in this.
Yeah.
I mean, I have 3 kids, and I just can't. There's no way I could fucking give up those 7 years just because I had, there was this sad biological mix-up in the beginning. Like,
Right.
that'd be really unfortunate. But I'd have to roll with the one I raised.
Yeah. I think any adoptive parent's going to agree with that too. Like anybody who's ever adopted.
It's a hard
child,
thing to wrap your head around, though.
You know,
I mean, someone's like saying
you raise that child becomes more your child than making one. It's like they're one and the same until you actually invest time and like fall in love with that child. Like
yeah.
And you've already developed a connection with the child.
Exactly.
So I mean, how would you even
yours.
be
You
able
can't
to
invalidate
give it
that.
up?
Yeah, all of the energy that substantiates love is fulfilled within that child that you've
Right.
raised for 7 years.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of years.
Yeah.
I
What
mean,
if it-
7 years is
If you slice that down, of
It's
course,
really-
I think if it was like a 2 year, that'd be way easier to do. I think like 2 years, okay, it is some formulative years, but I think there's a year cutoff, and I'm not going for a third choice here because I know I'll get the third
Careful
choice
now.
drone strike.
Thin ice.
Holy shit! How dare I?
I thought I heard a black helicopter.
Well, Sarah's third choice poison infected me over here.
What just happened?
What the fuck? It's an epidemic.
You gotta be careful. Dude.
Rub it. I mean, I have some good ones for tonight, but if you've got one, I know you've stacked some good ones up yourself.
I got
Do you
a
got
good-
one you want to throw out?
I think I got a good one here.
I like
it. Sarah, would you rather visit the past and see your ancestors, or visit the future and see your grandchildren?
Ooh, see your ancestors or see
Or like
your
great-grandchildren.
descendants.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, your descendants.
Yeah.
How far forward do I get to
I
go
think
if
I
I see
should
my
put it.
descendants?
I should put it into the realm
3
forward.
generations.
I should
Yeah.
put it into the
4?
realm forward where you know that you will never live long enough to actually meet them, because it's impossible for you to meet ancestors that have already died. So you have to make it equal in saying that these your great grandchildren or however far enough in the future that you will never live long enough to meet them. So which direction would you go?
I think I would go to the past, actually,
Find
Yeah,
out where
what-
you came from.
What sends you there?
to see how they lived and to kind of just get a feeling of their characteristic traits compared to ours with all this technology and globalization that we've had.
Now, if we do this, Rub, are we? We're merely observers, right?
No, this is a meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it's a
you
meeting.
actually get to
Okay.
to sit and talk with them, without the fear of changing the past or
Yeah.
affecting the future. This is
Without any
just a
paradigm
hypothetical
shifts.
dinner with your great grandfathers and mother, or your great grandson and daughter.
I would go into the future.
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of far more interested with what could be than
Where
what
it's
what
going.
already is.
Sure.
That is just the way my brain works. Of course,
Yeah.
there's no
No
wrong
wrong
answer here, because it would be really fascinating, obviously, to see how my ancestors got here.
Sure.
Why the fuck did you guys settle in North Dakota? Why don't you keep going? Fuck, keep going.
It's not that great.
Either keep going west, or you should have stopped south in the Black Hills. I'll never understand why you stopped here. Who does that? Like, where the fuck did they get trees to even survive that first winter? If you pulled up in North Dakota and you made that first winter,
Right.
why the fuck weren't you leaving in the next spring?
To this day, you see the wagon wheels that people use to decorate their houses. I'm pretty sure, like, the wagon broke, and that's the wheels that just came off the thing. They put them in the yard, and they said, "We're staying here."
I mean, I guess going further
These are
west.
people that don't know how to fix wagons. That's who stopped.
That's who stopped.
That's who stopped. The wagon broke. They don't know how to fix it. They're
Guys
like, well,
like me.
guess what?
That's
We
why
live
I'm here. Guys like me who can't fix anything.
That's it.
I mean, they wouldn't. That's as far as you could get without being able to fix anything. In North Dakota was about the stopping point. Like, if you can't fix shit, then you're not ready to face the mountains of Montana, dude.
Amen.
You better stick in the fucking frozen flatlands and just hope you can stay warm in your
You
cow
broke
skin.
your one wagon wheel. That's it. Shut
which,
it down.
Which way are you going, Rub?
I'm gonna go future as well.
Yeah.
I'm far more interested to see. I can watch history videos and I can watch I can introspect enough about myself to understand, maybe characteristics that my ancestors would have had that have just been carried over into me. Well, that's not anything new. Something new is something that would develop in the future. Where do the things that I'm trying to get started, where are those going to lead?
Now,
do you get to
about
visit for like a day? Like a day?
I'm thinking dinner.
I'm sorry, Sarah. What was that?
So what about, their thoughts as far as our ancestors compared to those in the future?
Mm-hmm.
I would be interested in knowing if they had simpler thoughts, if they weren't worried as much about things.
That is a good question.
What they were thinking.
You can oftentimes read about that now, though. I mean, if you just read like a really intense biography of like a frontier family or some family from that era, there are ways to acquire that knowledge.
I think there was a lot less existential angst
Oh,
in past generations, because the anxieties and the problems that they had were so much more in their face, something they could deal with by fixing a wagon or gathering enough food or wood to get through a winter, not necessarily worrying about what's going on in Washington, D.C. or other types of ethereal worries that we are just inundated with these days.
There was less circulatory information, which
Right.
actually brings me to a really awesome next question that we have here in the Good Talk. And really there are historical moments that can be defined by characters who sort of epitomized one or the other, and by the spread of information and how did it travel back then. I love that question. So I am wondering, what do you feel is more powerful, 5,000 acquaintances or 10 die-hard ride or die friends?
Most definitely the 10 die-hard true friends that will be there for you no matter what.
Yeah, and why is it that?
I feel like it takes a lot of energy and a lot of commitment to develop a meaningful relationship with someone, to really connect to somebody on a deep level. So acquaintances, yes, they're really great, but you aren't able to really get to the bottom of all of those people because
Right.
we literally don't have the mental energy to do that. I mean,
No, that's even biologically speaking. They say that really anything over like 150 people, you do not have the ability to connect on a personal level with any number about over that 150 or so. We're tribal people through evolution, and that's stuck with us so far.
I sort of obviously I fucking love my friendships, and I know the power that a good friend has. I've needed a good friend. I've had a good friend be there for me, and hopefully a time or two I've managed to be the good friend that was there for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
I think this question begs other questions, like most good questions.
This is a deep one.
What is your goal? What is the movement? How have 10 friends affected your life directly, as opposed to maybe how 5,000 acquaintances could
Right.
directly affect your life? And historically speaking, one's ability to influence or be influenced by a high number of acquaintances, what happens is the 10 number of friends that you have, those are your 10 direct friends in your circle. So they all share the predominantly same interests and same circles and same network as you. But for every acquaintance that you have that is outside that normal circle, that acquaintance then opens you up to other people that you would not have otherwise had access to. And this is not just how it applies
in that
terms,
regard, both are critical to,
Right.
to becoming the best person you possibly can be.
well, and
Critical.
They've done these really fantastic studies which identified really to pinpoint accuracy in terms of job acquisition specifically. People with a wider network of acquaintances oftentimes had a higher success ratio of getting a job than somebody getting a recommendation from a good friend. More often than not, somebody was getting a job not because I am friends with Chris Rubb, but because a guy Chris Rubb knows also knows me, and that would be
Sure.
like an acquaintance. And
Sure.
it's like, hey, wow, hey, Bob comes up and wants to give Jonah a job, and he's like, hey, you know what? Chris said you're great, so and that was a direct influence of both, right? You being my good friend extended to that acquaintance level,
Absolutely.
and that creates even a further network. So
Those
Networking, I feel like, is a little bit different than, the diehard friends versus the acquaintances. I mean, as far as if you're a business owner or if you're an entrepreneur, growing your business, you have to connect with
Yes.
tons of people, all different
Yes.
types of people, and that is where networking comes in. And then yeah, that is very important because you need that to be successful.
And on the flip side, those profound connections with those few tight-knit circle people in your life it's that grounding force to keep you and to help you, to keep people around you who have your genuine best interests at heart.
You need
who
those
aren't,
people.
who aren't maybe just using you for that networking opportunity to grow their own little egotistical realm of a business or whatever, what have you. But yeah, those profound connections to keep you grounded and to keep your best interests at heart.
the power of
So
the
important.
acquaintance
So important.
has been linked. So what they call that, it's the power of the small friend, or the acquaintance is the more simpler
Sure.
term, has proven time and again to have a more widespread social influence.
Right.
Not just in networking in terms of your own individual career.
Right.
It can be linked to the civil rights movement, directly to Rosa Parks.
Absolutely.
You don't always learn, of course, in hearing about Rosa Parks and the civil rights movement, about the dozens of women who were arrested that year before her. She wasn't the first one. There were many women arrested that same year before Rosa Parks.
Oh, right. Well, I think it was just like that was the one that started a cascade of.
Well,
of
and when
a
they
civil rights
analyzed
movement
it,
that
when
we
historians would
desperately
later
needed.
analyze that situation about what made Rosa Parks different from everybody else who was arrested that year.
Yeah, what was-
it? Was her social network.
People knew her.
She had a lot of friends.
Okay.
And not only because of the friends that she had, but her friends of friends. Everybody sort of knew Rosa Parks. She
Okay.
had this widespread influence from church groups and public involvement and being involved in
pillar
the
of a
schools.
community.
She kind of was a pillar of the community. Not
Sure.
everybody knew her though.
Okay.
Not everybody knew
But
her.
knew of her.
But she had a handful of good friends. There was already this the buzz was in the air for people that something had to change, something had to give in the Negro
This was a
community at that
catalyst.
time.
This
and
wasn't.
it was such a monumental trigger, and it was even people who didn't necessarily want to audaciously support that movement felt compelled to,
Sure.
because their two friends who knew Rosa Parks were going, and they didn't want to be the one standing out.
Right.
And so through that sort of acquaintance building, even a form of peer pressure, to a degree, evolved from that, where people even felt pressured. And of course, the civil rights movement really snowballs in major aspects from there, in terms of how the leadership accumulated and the community came together, and they refused to use buses, and the bus companies were losing tons and tons and tons of money. And
Right.
it was huge.
But then,
it was crazy.
Without,
but it was
without Rosa's acquaintance.
Without her circle of acquaintances, no way. It never
It's
would
not
have
to say it wouldn't have happened, but it certainly would have taken a
It would
different
not have been
shape.
her.
It would have looked different. It would have been under different circumstances, or just unfolded in a different way. And the fact that it was successful, the fact that we've made as much progress as we have socially. Well, I guess thank God she had a lot of acquaintances.
You're goddamn right. Another great figure I like to utilize in this scenario is everybody knows who Paul Revere is, right?
Sure.
But
Red
do you
coats
know?
are coming. The red coats
Right.
are coming.
You know, there's two guys that did that.
I did hear about that.
Okay. Paul Revere went one direction to warn
Right.
everybody, and forgive me, I think Paul Revere was the one going south in the stories, but the other guy, who nobody fucking
Yeah, there was
remembers
another fella
because
I
it
heard about.
didn't work for him. When Paul,
No
it
one
didn't.
wanted to listen.
Nobody wanted to listen to
This
him.
other asshole.
This other asshole, poor fucking, his name was William Dawes. William Dawes was the other dude. So him and Paul Revere each set out in a different direction to warn the entire American colonial community
Sure.
that the British were coming,
British
that they
are
had
coming.
some sort of terrible plan going on, and that they were going to fucking kill us, rape our villages and do all these terrible things.
Right.
Well, they both went. They were going door to door. They went to all the colonial leaders. They said, "Look, everybody has to organize. Everybody has to get together, get out of here." Everybody. It worked like 100% for Paul Revere. It didn't work for William Dawes at all.
Like they just didn't. Whatever, boy who cried wolf type situation.
Yeah, they were just
didn't
like,
give a
you know,
shit.
well, hey, you know,
You're kind of an asshole at church last weekend, William.
Something,
so
yeah,
we're not
they
listening.
just didn't believe in his word. And
Wow.
again, as historians would lay this situation out, Paul Revere was involved everywhere in the community. Everybody knew him. He was involved in different church groups, and when they were making new public offices and public panels to help shape and develop the local communities there, Paul Revere was involved in all of those.
Okay.
So he had a powerful word of mouth presence,
Sure.
a powerful
Sure.
word of mouth existence.
Yeah.
And so the potency of his information,
People respected
because
him.
he had the acquaintance network, was everything.
Right.
William Dawes,
Not so much.
I mean, the Revolutionary War, as it would be triggered by this, perhaps one might argue, completely hypothetical, but if everybody had listened to Dawes as well, we may have won the very first battle and have been pushing them back from the start.
Right.
But the colonials there were really slow to respond to him because they just didn't give a fuck about his word.
That's fascinating. That is absolutely fascinating. I had no idea that there was. I remember hearing not so long ago a different take on the whole story. Might have been on Drunk History. I think it was on Drunk History because the guy was making fun of him about that William Dawes dude. He's like, this other guy, William Dawes. Did you guys know about him? Yeah, he was right, and no one wanted to
Yeah,
listen.
like nobody gave a fuck. It's crazy.
Yeah,
It
poor
worked.
fucker.
It worked explicitly for Paul
Sure.
Revere. So
It's interesting, to just think about, why and what he could have done differently
Yeah.
and all of that.
How much terrible it could have been had he not done it at all.
well, what if there would have been two William Dawes?
Right,
If it would have
yeah.
been two guys like William Dawes and everyone would be like, well, fuck you
Just
guys,
crickets.
man. Like,
You're coming along. The redcoats are coming. Yeah, okay, bud.
okay. And
Copy that.
And it's crazy. To take that further, and this is probably part of the story, but the only reason Paul Revere, the final tipping point, if you will, of him understanding what was about to happen, was a fucking like a 10 or 12-year-old stable boy overheard a few fucking British officers talking about it as they were coming off a ship. He was hanging out in the shipyards. And he's
sure.
like, and this kid was like, holy shit, Paul Revere is going to want to know this. And
Oh,
he
so
ran.
he's already like sort of a folk hero.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
gonna- you gotta. You know who I've got to find? I got to find Paul.
I got to
Revere.
find Paul Revere.
He's gonna be
He
the guy.
has to know about this.
And then I suppose I'll tell William Dawes too.
Maybe William Dawes just happened to be standing there trading potatoes or something to fucking Paul
Hey, I
Revere.
can help too, guys.
Okay, William, we're going to send you north. Like, fuck.
There's like 3 towns to the north. There's 50 to the south.
And
I don't know the geography.
there
It
there
could've
are
been anything.
probably a major variety of small things that have happened to us or for us in our lives because of that small network of acquaintances.
Absolutely.
And
Things
it is
you might not ever find out about.
it is so easy to pick the 10 diehard friends because you know tangibly always what they can do for you, and they're there for you when you call them and they call you. You don't always know what that wider network of acquaintal influence may have.
No. It's a good
and
word too.
so
Acquaintal influence. I like
It's with a somewhat heavy heart. I'm choosing 5,000 acquaintances here. Because I have
And the way you worded it, though, is what is more powerful, not which would you rather have.
correct.
So, and you're right. That is more powerful.
That's
That is pretty powerful.
yeah.
They're both absolutely critical in my life. You've got to have them. My profound connections that I have with my dear, dear, dear close people in my life are irreplaceable, and I'm not gonna push them to the side.
Never way, never.
But that acquaintance network it's intangible, it's ineffable, it's something that Sometimes it creates things that you do realize came from that, and sometimes things just happen for you that you have no idea came from that little cloud.
Of course. Well, with a tangible, acquaintance network like that, Sarah, you could spread positivity like an epidemic.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
People also don't always realize that epidemic is, of course, when I say that word, what do you think of?
Well, you always think of like a virulent
if somebody says contagious, what do you think of
or
when
infectious.
I say contagious?
It literally spreads to, it not only helps change your immediate environment, but instantly impacts the surrounding environment too. And when people, it's energizing and attractive to the people around you. Positive energy is.
Yeah, I think so. I think any given habit, if you have that network of influence, can pass on, and positivity is, of course, the one we'd want to pass on first. Positivity, empathy, and general level of open-mindedness and exploration. Maybe sprinkle that with a little bit of what, Reb? What would you put on top of that little dinner plate?
Consciousness and being self-aware, being self-analytical, introspection is big deal for me. And being honest with yourself.
It is so amazing that you just said that. That rolls us directly into question number 4.
How did you know the word consciousness was coming out of my mouth?
Well, not just consciousness, but specifically the self-reflection aspect.
Yes,
because
that too.
I love this question and what we have going here. And what is the more important trait? How we relate to ourselves or how we relate to others?
Good question.
Most definitely how we relate to ourselves, because however we feel about ourselves impacts how we feel about other people.
Bingo.
You think it's just 100%? It's all coming from within?
I feel like, yeah. I mean, I feel like we have to know ourselves from inside out. We have to connect to the deeper part of ourselves to really truly find our purpose and our meaning and who we are, and kind of connecting ourselves to something larger than ourselves.
What would you say to somebody who told you, well, fuck, I don't really want to know myself, but people should, like, I know I should, but I just don't really give a fuck about that self-reflection and being mindful.
You will get that.
I am what I am.
You will get that.
You know what? What is the response?
The response is,
you just got to leave them the fuck alone until they're ready to open their eyes?
Yeah, you can't change anybody, if they don't want the benefits of, looking from within and the whole mindfulness and that mindful awareness. If they don't see the value in that, you really can't do anything for them.
Can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Is there like a...
I can't force you to better yourself.
Is there a soft pitch we can kind of throw at them that
you can throw them millions, and
maybe it'll bounce off their face and strike a chord?
Hopefully they'll get a hold of one. That doesn't mean that people who do see the effects and the aspects of being a positive and mindful person should ever give up trying. But do realize that don't get frustrated, because you're always going to run into that.
Well, and we can't give to others what they don't have themselves. So it really comes down to
anyway.
Self-awareness again, and understanding and knowing that something is wrong. Maybe they're thinking negatively, maybe they're battling anxiety or something else, and their brain is literally scanning for what's going wrong or what they're doing wrong instead of what's going right. So it all comes down to self-awareness again.
So that's a great list of problems for a person to have, or an unfortunate list of problems to have. What have you found are perhaps some of the solutions or some of the methods or habits that somebody can establish that would shift them toward a more positive outlook? Where does it start?
Well, it starts with kind of identifying your goals personally and professionally. What where are you right now, and where do you aim to be?
And we should be writing those down, right? When you are in the process of goal achievement, it's got to be written.
You
can't
have
just
to
have it in
make
your
it
mind.
visible to you. Yeah, you
Yes. Yep.
cannot.
Yep.
You have to make it visible to you, and sometimes you have to literally put Post-it notes around your house, or you have to create a successful environment. So whatever you're passionate about or whatever inspires you, you have to put it everywhere to remind you to just achieve those goals. But then again, you've got to start paying attention to your thoughts, feelings, and emotions throughout the day, and kind of identifying them. And there's several ways to do that. One way is just meditating and feeling your emotions physically, savoring the positive emotions so they stick with you longer.
I like that.
And, I like to...
How does one savor the positive moment?
Yep, so you literally
Does
will...
it have to happen right when it happens, or can I savor it
It doesn't
later?
have to. No, you can right when it happens, and you literally pause and you close your eyes. You don't have to close your eyes, but you visualize and relive that moment in your mind. And then if you want to take it one step further, you go to how you were feeling in that exact moment, and you relive those moments. So
recreate that state
you
of mind.
recreate it, and you really have to kind of just focus on it for several minutes to feel that. And you can do the same with negative
Did you know
experiences.
that Michael Phelps did that exact fucking thing
you're
that
training
you
your
just
brain.
described? Michael Phelps
You're training
literally
your
did
brain.
that.
You
It's very
train your
real.
mind.
That's very real.
You have to train your mind. I tell
Yes.
everyone, I'm like,
Yes.
it doesn't matter how positive you are, because one interaction, one experience can put you down, and
Sure.
you have to constantly be training the mind
in order to fight back from all that. And I
to
love
bounce
how
back faster, to become more resilient.
when a lot of people would ask, why would you write something down, or why would you put up Post-it notes and things like that? And I've got from a neurological standpoint, your internal monologue when you're speaking to yourself, and before you go about actually bringing these things out into the world. By these things, I mean your goals, things that that we're telling you write down or bring out into the world. Your internal monologue, you have to look at your brain as a big problem-solving computer. It's going to do that very well. But your internal monologue, when you're addressing yourself, is one area of the brain. You're only engaging that one area of the brain. Once you actually physically write something down and bring it out and look at it, now you're engaging your visual cortex, a different area of your brain. And you're using more of those connections, more of your brain focusing on that problem. If you can say it out loud, if you can have someone record it and play it back to you, again, now you're using an audio part of your brain, you're using a speech part of your brain. All of these things now focusing on the task at hand. Whereas before, if all you were doing is mulling it over inside your own head and using your own internal monologue, you're only engaging that one small area, that one little bit of your brain, when you have so much more to work with.
And that will not, if you are only focusing on that one part, that will not be enough
It won't
to
be
allow
enough.
you to shift your habits and create new positive habit loops.
No, it'll be
You
overpowered by everything else being stuck in those loops that you're not influencing.
You can't do
you
it
haven't
with just
engaged
that.
them.
Especially if you're focused on why you can't do something, why you're
Right.
not good enough,
Right.
and you are making excuses for every reason why you can't do something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and exactly. And so every time, if you are as a person perhaps with a negative habit of, well, why can't I do this? Maybe every time that happens, maybe you need to write it down real quick. Well, what was I feeling or thinking or doing at this moment?
There you go.
Because it might not be the same cue every time.
Right.
And you've got to sort of really analyze in the moment.
Paint that picture in your mind.
You have
to really put yourself back into a state.
It's like, was I hungry? Was it a certain time
you
of
go.
the day?
Yes.
Was
Things
it
like
after I
colors.
heard a fucking sad song?
You'll find
was
smells and colors, color palettes and smells to be.
Well, listen, there's certain fucking smells that
enormous
are going to
tools.
make all of us sad, my friend.
Smells
no matter,
are directly
you-
attached to
okay.
our emotional and memory.
And those emotional triggers, I like that you bring that up, is because, you do have to write down what was happening, what time of the day,
Sure.
who was around, were you talking to somebody, what triggered that emotional reaction.
The more information you can give yourself in that regard, the better. You're only going to bring your consciousness back into that mental state where you either confronted the problem or just a better one that's more conducive towards handling it.
Yeah, the influence that you can bear upon yourself and the world around you once you start to allow yourself to fall into these positive habit loops is it's going to be palpable.
It's big.
It's
big.
It already has been, just the results I've seen within myself and just my life, I feel like it's transforming and it's been amazing. And like I said, the negativity bias, it makes it so our minds want to scan for what's going wrong.
Right.
So we have to kind of aim for 3 positive emotions to every 1 negative emotion. And that's good. Like, that's what we should all be aiming for. And 4 to 5 positive emotions to every 1 negative emotion is flourishing throughout your days. So that's when you're most creative, you're most energized, you're most motivated, and literally nothing stands in your way.
You're going to be solving problems left and right.
You're solving problems. You're not focusing on problems.
On that level of neurokinesis, where you are engaging yourself on that level, that's where flow states come in. That's where, if you scan the brain of freestyle rappers when they're just going off on something that they're creating, but having enormous success, they find that areas of the brain are firing that have nothing to do with the amygdala,
yes, the emotional response system of the brain.
That's all shutting down, and you're going on to these free flowing states that are so much more alive inside the brain. Well, if you can put yourself into that flow state, you're going to be solving problems in your life left and right. Things that you normally would have grinded at for years and been so frustrated with are going to fall aside with ease.
And it's literally the littlest of things that you'll notice. Just for instance, being at the grocery store, you're in line and the line's really long, and you're in a rush, and how do you react to that situation?
Right.
Just something simple like that can set you off into a tangent, and it takes the body 90 minutes to recover from 1 negative reaction.
Wow. Right?
One negative reaction. So
Look
just
what
think,
you're doing by allowing that.
If you're constantly, if you have 1 negative reaction and then you have another one in 30 minutes, the body isn't able to recover, and then that's when the amygdala of the brain increases.
Oh yeah.
And
you're caught
into this terrible
state
loop.
of
The Buddhist in me, when I confronted with that line, simply says, "This is happening now. I'm in this line. This is happening now. I'm stuck in traffic. This is happening now. My gosh, it's cold out here. This is happening now. I can do nothing about it. I'm not going to look at this as anything more than this is happening now." If you allow yourself to run away with yourself, you're creating those stress responses. You're creating those horrible mental states that get us stuck and apparently fuck our bodies up for 90 minutes. I didn't know that. That's horrible.
And literally, it's
what a bunch of wasted time.
The neurons from the higher executive functioning part of the brain, the frontal lobe,
Sure.
they get transferred to the survival part of the brain. So literally, you're
responding as though you're being attacked physically.
You're not thinking right. You're not in a state of being able to solve anything.
No, you're just in this reptilian fight or flight mode. It's the same areas that are going to be triggered as though you're being attacked physically.
That's exactly it.
It's not good for problem solving. That's not what those areas do.
And the reality is, if you are in the perpetual state of negativity, you can, if you are willing and you allow yourself, retrain your brain. You first have to identify what those cues are. You have to know. You have to, of course, as Sarah said, be willing not to admit that there's anything wrong with you,
No,
but that
no.
but that you are now in a position of being captured in these negative moments and of the small things that don't matter. And there is one thing at some point I was able to train myself on, and I can't say I'm a master of the craft, but man, I am a really stress-free and laid-back person, and at some point I learned, or someone taught me, or it just stuck, that I cannot allow my emotions to react to something that is beyond my realm of control.
Right. That's
And
critical.
It's massive.
So critical.
There are, or simply put, you can't cry over spilled milk.
Right.
I mean, there are a lot of plays on words you can design.
Even if it is something that you could consider a serious situation, losing your cool is not helping you. You're not solving problems. You're just responding. And that stimulus response set that I keep coming back to, that I notice in so many people who do struggle with this, comes from that lack of introspection, that lack of the ability to step in between a stimulus without giving a response, with only observing and figuring it out. Then you go into that flow state of problems just start falling by the wayside. You figure it out.
And when we're focused on, the bad or the negative or whatever, our minds are constantly going, very crazily. Like our minds aren't quiet. We're not able to be calm and collective.
Right.
So that's one big thing about the introspection that we need to focus on.
Well, and it is, and that's why I am certainly, of course, on the train that is supporting how we relate to ourselves as being more important, predominantly than how we relate to others. Because as Sarah opened with, if you don't relate well within, you cannot do it without.
You won't. You just won't.
And Rub had kind of mentioned the other day when we were with Jessica, the power of habits and the mindfulness that one has in light of allowing your brain to control the simple habits that really don't allow any precognitive thought. Right. The more mindful brain has built-in habits, whether they are good or bad, they are there. Now, the more of these habits that you can store in that automatic area, the more free space you have on the outside of that to apply toward actual critical, open-minded thought. So,
curating those habits becomes very important at that point.
You must
making them good ones and not bad ones.
No, and it's so easy because your habits are stored. They're not new. Okay, you can make new ones, but as they are right now, all of our habits are here today.
They're
just
with
stack
us. Up. They don't really ever go anywhere.
Exactly. They continue to stack. So to take like the good habit, it's so hard. Like it's like going into the pantry and reaching all the way to the back to grab like the old shitty bag of ramen. Or reaching all the way into the back of the pantry, maybe to just grab some superfood. Maybe you've got your avocado up there, but in the front of the pantry, you've got your Doritos. You've got that easy stuff. So habitually, you're going to go for what's there, what's easier, what is simpler. So
what will give you instant results?
But it's generally it's going to be what's led you to a serotonin dopamine response quicker in the past, like that.
So it's not
the quickest way to form a habit is to get a reward.
It's not going to come without a level of self-discipline, and it's not going to come without like a level of willpower and control, and it's really challenging.
It is very
in today's society where most of us are working a pretty steady chunk of hours. We're supporting kids, oftentimes in a dual income household. You might have parents working opposite schedules, and although there is a good family unit there, people are working opposite schedules to make it all work. The whole white picket fence, everybody sitting around, and mom's at home all day and dad works.
Doesn't really work anymore, man.
That's not the reality of it today.
No.
And
it's just
No.
not real anymore.
No, it's not.
and there are those certain cues that we need, from that unified stance that are more difficult to achieve. And we only have a certain amount of willpower to give each day. This is a measured thing. So you start, if you were to start your day with 100% willpower, and you just have this awful mess of a shitty day. Imagine you're one of these poor police officers that your first call of the day is a suicide call.
Yeah.
Okay, now you took a suicide call, you saw something terrible, now you've got to go back out into the street. How much willpower is left? If you started at 100%,
Right.
and you start the day off with somebody's brains on the wall, what willpower is left over there?
Right.
At what point do you have control over what's left because you've been drained? You right there probably should be allowed to go and recharge somewhere. So
Unfortunately, again, that's not real either. But
no, it's not. But
that exists. That situation exists.
In our daily
there are
lives,
people who, from the inside in their reality, they're confronted with horrible, terrible things every single day, all day, and we, as a society, still expect them to stand up straight, present themselves professionally, and react to every situation with impunity. And that's not real. That's not real.
No, and I feel like that's the problem, is that we need more, there needs to be more training, more solutions, and just people need to be able to take mental breaks.
Absolutely.
They need that,
Particularly those who are...
Sarah, science would reinforce you on that, and that's why I was referencing willpower, is because, and that's why I was kind of talking about parents and everything that they have to do in this day and age, because at the end of a tough day, you may have drained your willpower down, and by the time you're maybe trying to take care of your kids or whatever, you've only got 15% left.
How easy are you going to fall into bad habits?
Well,
exactly. When you
are
so
drained
low.
the fucking willpower. How can we recharge that? How can we train our willpower? It's out there. There are ways. And that's why they've discovered 80% of all infidelity occurs at night. Because it's at the end of the day, after a long work day, because if there's all these cues and all this stimuli and all these in-place habits, you no longer have the willpower.
Right.
And it's not an excuse, obviously, for infidelity. But when they've analyzed the neurology of it,
we can explain why it happens when it happens.
Yeah, they've just sort of discovered that that's the big reason why it happens at night, because they just don't have the
and the implications of that lack of willpower go into our behavior at large.
Absolutely, it has a massive effect on all of it, and helping people find ways to build their willpower, whether it's through meditation or writing down the cues and the triggers that occur, and manifesting that positivity
Big
through.
Opportunity for real help.
It is.
Yes, and another tool, you can make a list of boosters, something that is going to recharge your batteries, even if it's just 5 to 10 minutes.
Sure.
Learning something new, dancing, listening to music, exercising, of course, and meditating is huge. I believe everyone should be meditating daily.
I need to do a lot better at it, but it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It's really amazing. It's life-changing.
The closest I've achieved to a meditative state was when Reb and I visited the isolation float tanks in Portland.
Float on.
At Float On, it was in Portland. We were out there for a couple of days of Humphreys McGee, and we met with some very beautiful, wonderful people in Stephanie and David Abbott.
Hi, Abbotts.
Oh, man, I love the Abbotts. And we had a very monumental time that weekend. But the Float On experience in particular, in the isolation tank, I still meet in my daily life a lot of people who don't know what a flotation tank or an isolation tank is. I get that a lot too.
I try to I talk about them a lot. So yeah,
they have one in Minot now.
Yeah, it's not bad.
They do, and I've heard it's not bad.
It's not bad,
and hopefully more people can experience it. I do know it's not like exactly how it should be.
I prefer the Samadhi style. but this one's not bad. I took all the extra towels and tried to seal the door up a little bit better. The door leaked a little bit of light.
Because you don't want any light in there at all.
No, you need pitch black. The whole idea is sensory deprivation.
I know a lot of
dulling.
people have been in one or maybe heard it, but Rub, for someone who's never visited a float tank, can you tell us what you're getting into?
Well, ideally, a float tank is originally they were called sensory deprivation tanks, and I actually prefer that name better as that describes the situation.
I think that name is less marketable.
It is. I think it is too. The sensory deprivation tank almost sounds a little scary.
It's intimidating.
Whereas a float tank sounds like something therapeutic. And
it does.
And a lot of spas have them, and they love their soft words. So let's let them have it. Okay, they can have float tank. I'll allow it. But the fact is, I prefer sensory deprivation tank because it's a more better description of what's actually going on. The idea behind a sensory deprivation tank, of course, is just that, sensory deprivation. We're going to put you into a relatively small box. It's not teeny tiny, but it's not big either. It's going to be completely dark in there. It's the idea is let in no light, no sound, no smell. We're going to try to shut off every sense here. So the last sense you have is your sense of touch. Well, we're going to float you in water, and in that water, we're going to dissolve about 800 to 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt.
So you cannot sink.
Right. That's going to increase the salinity of the water by, it's going to make the ocean seem like fresh water. This is salty, salty, salty water. You lay on your back, and you float like a cork. We're also going to make that water the exact temperature as the surface of your skin. So that as you relax, as you start to let go of those senses, your senses are going to try to fight because they're so used to receiving input 24 hours a day. They're just always getting input. When you are still awake, aware, and conscious in this situation, your senses start to play some tricks on you as they're trying to fight for input. It's very weird. It's very off-putting. There's sometimes some senses of motion come in and all kinds of other things, but it also allows for, again, we talk about those areas of the brain that are responsible for touch, smell, sight, all those other things. Now they can relax a bit and allow those other parts to kind of shine through. And those other parts, when they shine through, they bring on an experience, an elucidation. It's almost psychedelic in nature, and it's very therapeutic. It can be very exploratory in nature, and it's a lot of fun too.
It is the real definition of being alone with your consciousness.
For sure.
It is the easiest way to get there if you can't meditate your way into it.
Right. Or if you don't want to imbibe anything.
Yeah, of course. I
to each his own.
Absolutely glorious going in there. I felt like I was able to, what I like to call, slip into the void very quickly.
Yeah.
And
you took to it really well.
It is slipping into the void, my friends and listeners. It's what I call that is just allowing your mind to silence itself, understanding that you can't move in there. You have to be willing to let your head lay back. You have to not allow yourself to kind of bounce into the sidewalls. And once all the perceptions are gone and all the reality as it caresses you every day, and every day you're squishing against reality, whether you know it or not. You're in there with it. Your skin is touching it. It's licking your eyeball.
You sort of find this place between awake and asleep. This place between conscious and unconscious. Do
we want to call it a state of lucidity?
I run out of words. That's an indication that we're getting somewhere, actually, is that I run out of words to describe it. Whenever you're starting to run out of words to describe a mental state, you're getting into some place it's uncharted territory. And uncharted territory is almost always good. You're learning, you're growing. That's a place you've never been.
How many times can you fall into yourself?
I've not found an end yet.
I really didn't, and I went deep, and I was echoing across the void of my consciousness to the point where I felt perhaps I was beginning to share my consciousness with something else.
Sure.
While I was in there. And it was beyond powerful.
It's a lot of fun.
Please, by all means, if you live somewhere that has a float tank, spare yourself a dinner, a couple of beers, or whatever it may be.
It's not ridiculously expensive.
It's not crazy expensive. Go and jump into a float tank for 90 minutes.
Give it a shot.
Let go of yourself. It's healthy. It's wonderful.
Read up
it's
on it.
Spiritual.
Read up on it so that, like those 90 minutes, you don't want to waste any time. So, read up on it, know what you're getting yourself into, take the advice of people who have, maybe talked to somebody who's floated before, and work on meditation and focus.
Work on quieting your mind.
Work on quieting your mind.
The biggest struggle
yes.
people have
you get in there
is
and
quieting their mind.
It's really easy to just start playing around in there because it's fun anyway, right? Like, you're floating like crazy. You can bounce back and forth inside the tank, and it's fun. It's easy to just start playing. Well, that's all well and good. Again, enjoy it, but realize that there's something else there too. If you have the discipline, really, that's where I could use some work.
It is a playground, but not like the ones we've experienced.
No,
the
not at all.
playground is within people, and that's where you want to find it.
Yeah.
We're gonna round it out with a fifth and final. Rub, do you want to load the fifth and final, or should we go with my last one?
I don't have a really great one. Do you have I
got a pretty decent one.
You got a pretty decent one?
I kind of like it.
Why don't you go?
Yeah,
ahead?
let's toss out the fifth and final question, rounding out
I feel like
a good
Sarah
talk
deserves
five.
better than mine.
Oh, geez, you're so hard on yourself.
Aw.
Yeah, I'm gonna come over there and take your ideas and stomp on it and squish it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. What has a stronger impact in our lives? Belief or pure, true, tangible knowledge?
Ooh.
Can't those kind of go hand in hand?
There are no third choices here, Sarah. You are about to force me to ask Rub to send you to the guillotine. That is gonna fuck. We have a fucking third choice guillotine.
Third choice guillotine.
I will never send anybody there, but I will ask Rub to do it.
I was just dulling the blade earlier
Watch your cord there on the chair, bro.
Before the.
I will ask Rub to send you to the third choice guillotine, and they will cut your head off if you ever try to suggest a third choice again. You're beyond third choice drone strike, and we're gonna make it. We're going medieval on you.
This is a really I don't know.
Belief and okay. Can you repeat the question?
What has a stronger impact in our lives? Belief or
tangible fact?
Pure, true, tangible fact. Knowledge.
That's a barn burner.
Yeah, I feel like our beliefs, can be backed up by facts and knowledge, though. So
sometimes the very definition of belief, yes, it can be reinforced by knowledge, but it sort of suggests that there is something you believe in, whether it's aliens or whether you believe in the JFK was an inside job, or you belief shapes knowledge. I don't, or is it the other way around? Or does knowledge shape belief? Huh?
I don't know. This is a
because some people
tough
would design.
question.
Some people would design their entire knowledge base on a belief system.
Well, that's confirmation bias, and that's not science.
But that's what's happening.
Well, of course
in a lot of areas.
But
So
doesn't make it valid.
And belief is in some ways, I think, a little bit. I don't want to say better, but pure tangible knowledge. What is that? How can people process it? Some folks don't want it.
Well, pure tangible knowledge is things that we can represent empirically. I can create mathematical models that replicate physical processes in the universe. That's empirical knowledge. That's really not open to what I believe in. I don't have to believe that math is right. Like, math just is right.
Is everything as black and white as a simple mathematical physics equation?
There's where we get into beliefs.
Ah.
What do I believe is something that I can't necessarily prove, I don't have empirical evidence for, but perhaps things in my life have led me to believe that that's the truth. That's the case.
Was it knowledge or belief that developed NASA? Would we have NASA if we just based it on knowledge?
Knowledge created the science. Belief
sometimes I think
created the
I feel like
desire.
you have to believe in whatever you're doing or yourself to get the knowledge, right? I mean, where did it come from? Where did it all come from?
Well, that is almost like a I don't want to go where did it all come from, because that's not what this is about. That's a whole other question and a whole other realm altogether.
Belief creates desire to attain knowledge.
Yeah. Yes, that's what I mean.
I guess.
So in some ways, I believe
this is a good one. This is a barn burner.
I believe we can get to the fucking moon.
Or I believe we should.
And
Kennedy laid it out. He's basically in his speech.
They came up with a plan.
So and so they used their knowledge and they attained more knowledge.
But if
to build the spacecraft to take us there.
If sometimes we stop at pure tangible knowledge, and that is where I think it becomes a problem. Pure tangible knowledge puts a definition of infinity, right? Like this pure tangible knowledge cannot be changed. As we've known it now, what we thought was knowledge, say in 1992, our boy Graham Hancock, we are stuck sometimes, and we get what would be the wrong knowledge or the wrong information.
That is true.
And we are stuck with it.
That is true.
And people don't want to move forward from that.
That is very true.
Yeah,
without a new set of beliefs to question the established knowledge, then we would not be able to affect the change we wanted.
And that being said, we should always be questioning preconceived notions. We should always be looking to revise concepts that have been laid out before us. Never stop in that regard, ever.
That's all the fixed versus growth mindset. You know, the fixed mindset is really set in the ways of how things are, and the growth is all about developing and challenging and, you know, searching, exploring, trying new things.
Do those two mindsets not just illustrate really the dichotomy in society today? Those who would sit still versus those who look to grow.
So
that's exactly it.
That's like you could put everybody in one of those two groups.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yes.
There's no third answer there either.
There's lots of research behind it as well.
No need for a guillotine on that one.
No, we're not going to break out the guillotine, and there's not going to be a need for that here tonight at the Good Talk 5. Please find us on Twitter. Where do you land? Belief or knowledge? It sounds like we finished with a verdict of belief. It seems perhaps that belief shapes knowledge more than the other way around. And I believe I had a great fucking time here tonight with our guest, Sarah Fast.
Yes, I had a great time.
My partner, Chris Rubb, and all of you, we absolutely adore you guys. We have so much gratitude for you listening. Please, if you're on Twitter and you're following us, give us a retweet when we share our episodes. Find us on iTunes at The Good Talk. It's all one word. All those little nudges are absolutely critical at this time as we begin to shape habits that want to allow paradigm shifts to affect positively all of you and all of us, extending to our networks and changing the world within you, within me, together on the Good Talk podcast. We'll see you later, folks.
Good talk.
Bye-bye.